Hello, my name is Vanessa Guerra, and today, alongside my peers, we will be discussing our research question that we have devised. The question is, among firms engaging in mergers and acquisitions, does firm profitability reduce audit fees during acquisition years despite heightened transaction complexity? The research question is driven by three main factors. Mergers and acquisitions occur primarily for strategic growth, such as expanding capital, strengthening competitive strategies, and improving profitability. However, from an audit perspective, mergers and acquisition transactions create unique challenges. Auditors are often not involved in strategic or acquisition planning, which limits their early understanding of transaction risks. As a result, auditors face elevated workloads driven by financial consolidations, valuation analysis, and integration challenges. These demands are intensified during the integration phase, where unstable control environments increase the risk of material misstatements. Additionally, SOX compliance during mergers and acquisitions requires heightened fraud risk monitoring and additional auditor labor, further increasing audit effort during acquisition years. These facts are crucial in the creation of the research question. Additionally, prior research establishes two well-documented findings. First, audit fees increase as transactions become more complex. Second, higher firm profitability is generally associated with lower audit fees because profitable firms are viewed as more stable and better controlled. However, these relationships are typically studied across all firms and time periods. There is limited evidence on how profitability and audit fees interact specifically during merger and acquisition years. Our study addresses this gap by examining mergers and acquisition firm years exclusively and testing whether the stabilizing effect of profitability persists in a setting characterized by heightened complexity, risk, and audit effort. Motivated by this gap, our research question asks whether firm profitability reduces audit fees during acquisition years despite the heightened transaction complexity associated with mergers and acquisitions. We test this using two hypotheses. The null hypothesis states that among M&A firm years, profitability is not associated with audit fees. The alternative hypothesis predicts a negative association, suggesting that more profitable firms experience lower audit fees during M&A years. This expectation is based on the idea that highly profitable firms may have stronger internal controls and operational efficiency, which could offset some of the additional audit risk and effort created by mergers and acquisitions.
To test our research question, we were given the M&A dataset, which consisted of firm year observations from 2017 to 2023 and focuses on firms engaging in mergers and acquisitions. It includes financial performance data, audit information, and governance characteristics. Ultimately, the purpose of the dataset is to examine whether firm profitability reduces audit fees during acquisitions years. As shown in the dataset, the initial dataset that we were given included 871 observations. After running the dataset through our console, the platform essentially removed any blank, missing, or incomplete data for the following variables that we were going to test on, including our independent variable, the dependent variable, and the control variables. And finally, we were left with the final dataset to use to run our regression of 755 observations. For variable construction, our dependent variable is the natural logarithm of audit fees, as audit fees reflects the amount of work and risk involved in the audit. We use the natural log to reduce skewness and make the data more appropriate for regression analysis. Because acquisitions increase audit complexity, audit fees captures the additional effort required during those years. Our main independent variable is return on assets, simply due to the fact that it measures firm profitability and financial performance, and it's crucial to our question because we were testing whether more profitable firms experience lower audit fees. Then we have several control variables to ensure that the relationship between profitability and audit fees is not influenced by other firm characteristics. LN_assets controls for firm size, since larger firms typically require more extensive procedures. Leverage captures financial risk, as firms with higher debt may require additional audit effort. And finally, the Big Four is an indicator variable equal to 1 if the firm is audited by a Big Four auditor. Big Four firms often charge higher fees due to their reputation and expertise, so controlling for auditor type ensures fee differences are not simply driven by the audit firm.
On this slide, I present the main regression results used to test our hypothesis. We estimate an OLS regression where the dependent variable is the natural log of audit fees and our key independent variable is firm profitability, measured by ROA. We control for firm size, leverage, and whether the auditor is a Big Four firm. The results show that firm profitability has a negative and statistically significant coefficient of negative 0.427. This indicates that holding all factors constant, more profitable firms pay lower audit fees during merger and acquisition years. Therefore, we reject the null hypothesis and find support for our alternative hypothesis. Firm size is positive and highly significant, which is consistent with prior literature. Larger firms require more extensive audit procedures and therefore incur higher audit fees. The Big Four indicator is also positive and significant, reflecting higher pricing associated with higher audit quality and reputation. Leverage is not statistically significant in this model. Finally, the adjusted R-square is approximately 57%, indicating strong explanatory power. To ensure the reliability of our results, we conducted several diagnostic tests. First, we estimated robust standard errors. The coefficients estimate remain unchanged, and firm profitability becomes more statistically significant, strengthening our findings. Second, we tested for multicollinearity using variance inflation factors. All BIF values are between 1.09 and 1.17, which indicates extremely low correlation among independent variables. Third, the Bruch-Pagan test does not detect heteroscedasticity with a p-value of 0.5056, suggesting that residual variance is stable across observations. We also examined influential observations using Cook's distance. Only 3.84% of observations exceed the conventional threshold, and none are extremely influential, indicating that the model is not driven by outliers. Finally, graphical diagnosis, including the residuals versus fitted plot shown here, confirm that linear functional form is appropriate and the residual behavior is generally well behaved. Overall, these diagnoses support the validity, stability, and reliability of our regression model.
For this slide, I'll briefly explain how to interpret the main findings of the study. The key result is that firm profitability measured by return on assets is negatively and significantly related to audit fees during merger and acquisition years. Even though M&A activity increases audit complexity, risk, and workload, more profitable firms tend to pay lower audit fees. This suggests that profitability acts as a risk-reducing signal to auditors, reflecting stronger internal controls, operational efficiency, and overall financial stability. Consistent with prior research, firm size is positively associated with audit fees. Larger firms have more complex operations, more subsidiaries, and more extensive financial reporting requirements, especially during acquisitions, which increase audit effort. Similarly, firms audited by Big Four auditors pay higher audit fees, reflecting fee premiums for audit quality, reputation, and specialized expertise in complex transactions like mergers and acquisitions. First, the sample is limited to publicly traded U.S. firms between 2017 and 2023, which may limit the results to private firms or international settings. Public firms face stricter reporting and regulatory requirements that can influence audit fees. Second, while the model controls for key firm characteristics, audit firms during M&A years may be affected by transaction-specific factors such as deal complexity, cross-border acquisitions, or post-merger integration challenges, which are difficult to fully capture in a regression model. Third, probability is measured using return on assets, which may not fully reflect a firm's overall financial strength, particularly around acquisition periods when earnings and asset values can fluctuate. Finally, the analysis focuses only on M&A years and does not directly compare audit fees to non-acquisition periods, which limits the ability to assess how audit pricing changes before and after acquisition years. To conclude, this study examines audit fees during merger and acquisition years, a period when audit complexity and risks are significantly higher. The results show that while audit fees generally increase during M&A years, firm profitability plays an important mitigating role. More profitable firms tend to pay lower audit fees even during acquisition years, suggesting that profitability serves as a risk-reducing signal to auditors. Consistent with prior research, larger firms and firms audited by Big Four auditors incur higher audit fees due to greater operational complexity and the premium associated with audit fees and expertise. In contrast, financial leverage does not appear to be a significant driver of audit fees in this setting. Overall, these findings highlight that financial strength continues to matter in auditors' pricing decisions, even in high-risk transactional environments like mergers and acquisitions. This study contributes to the audit fee literature by showing that profitability helps offset transaction-related audit risks and costs.